I'm Joe Broadhurst. You're listening to CKUT. It is currently 8:16, and joining me on the phone is Dr. Paul Connet. Good morning.
Good morning, Joe.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing fine. We're going to talk about fluoridation in water this morning, and can you just do me a favor and tell my listeners a little bit about your background and about your website?
Yes, certainly. I've just retired from teaching chemistry at St. Lawrence University in Canton, New York, which is just across the Canadian border. During that time, I specialized in environmental chemistry and toxicology. Over the last 10.5 years, I have focused on fluoride's toxicity and the dangers of water fluoridation. And our website is fluorideaction.net, and your listeners should make sure they spell fluoride right. It's the U comes before the O, not like flower, but like flu, Fluoride, action, of course, and then .net.
And we're having, I wanted to bring this discussion up. Obviously, Montreal has been fighting the fluoridation of their water for a long time. We have a town called Dorval, which wants to fluoridate its water, but unfortunately, Quebec is asking that Montreal jump on board so that they can fluoridate everything all at the same time. It's going to be a time saver. I want to first of all start off this discussion and with a little bit of history on fluoride. Can you bring us back to the early 20th century and tell us what exactly fluoride was used for back in the day?
Well, fluoride has been used for many, many years as a rat poison, roach poison. It's a very powerful poison pesticide. The whole history of fluoridation came about in the early part of the 20th century. They found kids with staining of the teeth in different places in the United States, and it took them 30 years, and they finally realized the staining of these teeth in 1931 was caused by fluoride. But some of these observers said that the tooth decay in these children was less when they had this condition, and that's when they introduced the idea of finding a level which they felt would minimize tooth decay without producing too much dental fluorosis. Now, of course, in the United States, 1/3 of our kids are impacted by dental fluorosis, and it's growing all the time. So our kids now are being overexposed to fluoride. Very quickly, the level that fluoride is added to the drinking water, 1 part per million, is 250 times higher than the level in mother's milk. In other words, a bottle-fed baby in Dorval, if you refluoridate, is going to get 250 times more fluoride than nature intended, which is pretty preposterous. It's saying that nature doesn't really know what it's doing in terms of designing baby's first meal. I travel through to Montreal many times. I'm very close to you. I travel through Dorval. I fly out of Dorval, and I'm horrified to think that I'm once again going to be forced to drink fluoridated water in all the drinks that I take at Dorval Airport. And, Joe, one of the things that I find extraordinary in this whole thing, with the newspaper coverage, it's all been on the basis of where the money is coming from, and this is wonderful, 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 totally ignoring all the scientific literature that shows the dangers of this practice, and also the scientific literature which says it doesn't work. By swallowing, the benefits are topical. Any benefits of topical are from the outside of the tooth and not from the inside of the body. Swallowing fluoride makes as much sense as swallowing sunblock to protect yourself from the light. It's a crazy idea, and unfortunately these health department people are just not doing their homework. Of particular concern, Joe, is that over the last 3.5 years, we've had a panel of the National Research Council, which is our highest research body in the United States, looking at the safety of our drinking water standard. They produced a 450-page report with 1,000 references and came back and said the safe drinking water standard should be lowered. And they've asked the EPA to determine what that new level should be. For any health department anywhere in the world to continue fluoridation without going through that report very, very thoroughly and seeing how it relates to water fluoridation, in my view, is derelict of duty.
Let's talk just for a moment about because the people that are pushing this, it's very strange, but because we just mentioned just before that it was used for rat poison, and they want to put it into our water and give it to our kids, and
I don't want to overstate this, okay? Don't let's overstate this. We're not suggesting for one moment that a kid is going to drink water and die on the spot. No. What we're talking about is any really toxic substance which has acute levels. What you have to be worried about is very, very low levels, which may have long-term chronic effects, which may be subtle.
Absolutely, now, because this is an element. It doesn't just go away.
Well, actually, as is put into the water, being a chemistry professor, I've got to be accurate here. As put into the water, it's a compound. Fluoride,
okay.
You use the word with the IDE on the end when you have a compound. So when fluoride combines with sodium, you get sodium fluoride. When it combines with calcium, you get calcium fluoride, and so on. So we're putting a compound into the water, not the element. The element is extremely toxic. We're not talking about putting fluorine into the water, but fluoride. But fluoride is extremely biologically active, and I'm not the only person. Dr. Arvid Carlsson, a Nobel Prize winner in Sweden, a pharmacologist, he rejected fluoridation in 1978 because he was concerned about the fact that newborn babies were getting exposed to fluoride at many, many times higher than nature intended. And he's a specialist on the brain. And one of the things we know is that the blood-brain barrier of a baby is not fully developed at both. So this is a very risky business as far as mental development, and the NRC report makes clear that there are many other tissues that we've got to be concerned about, particularly the endocrine system, and particularly the thyroid gland and the pineal gland. There is plenty of evidence to indicate that fluoride interferes with the thyroid function. And we have millions of people in the United States now, I'm not sure about Canada, but millions of people that have hypothyroidism in the United States. And the levels which can cause this are very, very low indeed, and are in fact exceeded by people drinking fluoride in drinking water. So I'm not saying that the case is 100% certain that these things are going to accrue, but it's absolutely vital that health agencies study this issue very, very carefully indeed, and particularly all the data in those 450 pages of the National Research Council report. It's ludicrous to continue this discussion on whether this council will do this and this council will do that, and where the $400,000 is going to come from, and whether the whole of Montreal is going to fluoridate its water to accommodate Dorval. These are completely, utterly secondary issues compared to the number one issue is, does fluoridated water cause damage to a newborn baby and other citizens if you have lifetime exposure to it?
And it just, there's been a lot of alternative media that have been discussing the fact that the FDA hasn't approved this.
This is a really bizarre story. The whole story of fluoridation is a bizarre story, and I urge you to, for listeners, to read a book called The Fluoride Deception by Chris Bryson. It took him 10 years to write, and there's another book in French by Gilles Parent called the Fluoridation, the Autopsy of Deception, I think it's called. Anyway, the extraordinary thing is that the FDA has never regulated fluoride for ingestion. In addition to putting fluoride in the water, they have tablets for kids at 1 milligram a day. And they've never regulated that. When you ask the FDA why they haven't regulated fluoride for ingestion, as like they do with every other drug, they say, oh, well, it was in use before 1938, and therefore it was grandfathered in. Give me a break. It was in use before 1938 as rat poison. So on the basis, how bizarre can you get? On the basis of the fact that you were using fluoride for rat poison, you don't have to investigate its side effects when human beings